Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. This is an extremely punctual crowd. You've all been sitting here quietly for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, so we'll get started now. We're here for a City Council meeting. It's Tuesday, September 7th, 2021. We'll start the meeting with a roll call and determination of quorum.
Nordstrom.
Here.
Weifenbach. Roberts. Stroman. Armstrong. Jones.
Here.
Lehman. Solomon. Evans. Drew. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. And now we'll have the invocation by our very own Pat Jones, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mayor. Please join me in a state of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this gathering tonight. We thank you for the opportunity that you have given us to govern, to listen, to work together, to come together as one, and to strive to meet the needs of all. We pray that you would continue to be with our community as we battle this evil thing called COVID. We pray that you would cleanse us of that evil. We pray that you would remove it from our country and allow us to move forward and return to our lives. May your blessing be upon all that takes place at this meeting tonight, and may we leave here a little bit wiser, a little bit more caring, and a little bit more concerned about not just ourselves, but those around us. We pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, one nation, and now for the adoption of the agenda. This is a time when the City Council can adopt the agenda as written or make certain modifications to it. Would there be a motion? So moved. Motion to adopt by Lehman, second by Evans. All in favor of adopting this agenda say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Motion carries. Item number 1, we have some presentations tonight. The first one is a presentation on the Downtown Business Improvement District Board from D'Amico Rodriguez.
Thank you, everyone, for having me, and please excuse my attire. I just came from football practice, not myself, my children. But again, my name is D'Amico Rodriguez, and I'm the president and CEO of Main Street Square and Destination Rapid City. We are a nonprofit. And I came here today. I was not able to attend the last city council meeting, but I did watch it. And I understand that there were some questions regarding the downtown bid. So here I am to explain what it is and what those funds are used for. So what is the downtown bid? Long story short, the part that is in the middle, which is the downtown core, is considered bid district 1. And that is charged a 0.5% higher tax than the blue, which is the surrounding. And looking at this definition, it was created for the purpose of funding a portion of all of the future proposed public activities, facilities, and improvements, along with the costs of acquisition, construction, maintenance, operation, repair of such improvements, facilities, and activities. So ultimately, the downtown bid was created for a better downtown. And ultimately, again, the downtown core sees the majority of those improvements, but there are other uses potentially for the bid, and some of those have been used, some of the funding has been used as such. Since its inception, the Downtown Business District's funds have been used for the following projects. This is not all of them, but just so that some of you know what those are. The historic plaque restoration. That was actually done last summer, where all of the plaques that outline some of downtown Rapid City's history, we restored those with bid fund dollars. Also, the bid board They did support one of the cultural events downtown, Native Pop, an event downtown at Main Street Square, so they gave some funding to help support that event. Also, in the early days, some of those funds were used for the fireworks that used to be held on 4th of July. Also, the downtown holiday lights that surround the poles, Memorial Park Promenade and Legacy Commons playgrounds with the help of some additional private funding. Also, one thing that we haven't seen for a while, but when there's an excess of buildup of snow downtown, the bid board has allocated funds somewhere around $20,000 a couple of years ago to help remove some of the snow downtown. Again, the whole premise is to create foot traffic downtown. We work very close with Parks and Rec and a lot of the other city departments on some of these projects, including wayfinding signs, the blue signs that you see downtown that tell locals and tourists where to go, where some of our highlights are in Rapid City. Also, a long time ago, the downtown bid purchased bicycles for the Rapid City Police Department, of which they still use today. And then also, beautification is a big part of downtown. Tree grates, planting trees around downtown, as well as some of those funds many years ago were for the creation of a downtown master plan, as well as a downtown lighting project. Here's just some of the facts, and these pictures on here are for a purpose. One of the biggest things that we do regularly, and I want to give a shout out to Jeff in the Parks and Rec department, is we clean up a lot of trash downtown. One of the things that we hear every single summer, and I've been working downtown for the better part of 15 years, is, man, you guys have a really nice downtown. A lot of that is because the work that is done before most people even get up or go to bed. Parks and Rec is out there cleaning Memorial Park. I'll use that as an example. Breaking up some of the encampments that are underneath the bridges and things like that. Our staff help assist with that. So that top right picture is some of the trash. And we have a gentleman by the name of Lewis who is part of our downtown clean team. He takes pictures and documents everything that he picks up because apparently a few years ago this question came up previously, and he now documents absolutely everything that he picks up and the amount of trash, the amount of recycling cans that he gets as well, because also the recycling cans downtown, that is a Destination Rapid City project which is funded by the downtown bid. Also, the ambassadors, which has been a program that has been very well received within the city, is our downtown ambassadors. And those are the people in red shirts that help our visitors find where they need to go in downtown Rapid City. Also, I know it's been highly touted as an extra set of eyes in downtown Rapid City. And I know we've talked and we've met with the police chief numerous times. This is a program that started as a brainchild of the bid district. Other communities do it, we adopted it, and it's been very successful. In addition to that, Lewis is our full-time year-round downtown clean team. He handles snow removal, which you'll see up there. Now, I want to be clear, this is not snow removal of all snow from downtown. We do not have the manpower for that. But what we do is we do a pass downtown to ensure that shop owners can get into their doors and people can walk downtown as they need to get to where they need early in the mornings. Then it's up, of course, to the business owners to address any additional snow issues. Also, the planters that are downtown, whether they be on the ground or the hanging planters, we receive funding to plant those, and then we maintain them throughout the year. If you're not familiar with those, take a walk around downtown this week because they look amazing. Also, 52 Block District is serviced weekly, and what that is we go through Art Alley. We go what is now the apartment complex that is being built. Before it was an empty lot with weeds. We would go over there and remove the weeds from there. Also trash and recycling. 1,800 gallons of waste removed weekly in the summer. And also in the bottom right, you'll notice the utility boxes. That was a project of Main Street Square, Destination Rapid City in the bid, where they covered all of the utility boxes. Again, if you've ever been anywhere, this is a very popular yet expensive endeavor, and it helps clean up downtown Rapid City. Also, I mentioned snow removal, sidewalk, power washing, and cleanup. I think most of the people here would be amazed at how much human waste we clean up downtown on an annual basis. We can't track that, nor do we want to, but I just wanted to make that as a reference. The Downtown Clean Team. Again, in 2010, Destination Rapid City initiated the Downtown Clean Team, whose mission is to keep downtown clean. It is one person year-round, and then we hire a second person in the summertime to help keep up with the watering, and then our staff at the actual square then helps when we can. Again, the majority of what we pick up is trash, also graffiti repair. And actually, you can't see it very well on this picture, but one of the statues was defaced. Our crew goes over there and cleans those statues as well. Legacy Commons Playground, again, a great addition to downtown. In 2014, this opened, and again, as we look to evolve downtown Rapid City and create a gateway into the new monument from everything there is to do down 6th Street and downtown, this plays a major role in that. Again, with private dollars, this was a dream and executed by Destination Rapid City and partial funds from the downtown bid. And then again, this is Juanita, one of our downtown ambassadors. Who can be mean to her? She is amazing. Our staff is amazing. This summer, we have 5. We've extended our hours over the past 2 years to go into October to meet the needs of the Civic Center and Parks and Rec as well. And these people, again, are an extra set of eyes, but also ambassadors for downtown and Rapid City overall. And that, in a nutshell, is what the funds have been used for from the downtown bid since its inception. I do want to preface this by saying the downtown bid was created long before Main Street Square. And the intent of the bid was to help Main Street Square with operations and all things that pertain to downtown and keeping downtown viable, visitable, and clean. So I'm open for any questions if anybody has any.
Thanks, D'Amico. We'll go to Pat Jones.
Thank you very much, Mayor. D'Amico, I want to thank you for being here tonight. I requested that you come based on several people having questions about what the Business Improvement District was, how it was funded, et cetera, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be here, so thank you. So many wonderful things go on in downtown and around Rapid City, but nobody knows who does them. Mm-hmm. And the folks that you just named throughout there are the most invisible, hardest working people around. And so we thank you and them for what they do. Nothing happens for free, and that's why the bid was created, and that money that goes from those taxes goes to pay for those things that you listed, right? It's yep. Just that simple, basically, yep. Right? Pay for the staff and the supplies and et cetera. So if people have more in-depth questions, I'm sure they can contact you. But I really appreciate you being here tonight and rolling this out, because the impression that everything that you listed up there makes on our visitors and our local people really matters. And it's a great thing. I've known you for some time, and I know your leadership and your style and how you do things, and I just couldn't be happier that we have someone like you leading the charge on this. So thanks for being here tonight and for answering questions that our citizens had. Thank you, Mayor.
Absolutely, and if I could interject, I'll be honest, is Dan Seffner, Ray Hillebrandt, Dan Tribby are the reason that all of this is happening. I'm just the one that's carrying it through the next phase. I just want to be clear on that.
Darla Drew.
And I can't think of anybody better to carry it through. I just have a quick question. You said you had 132 flower pots downtown, but you didn't pay for the flowers. Is that our Parks Department that does that?
Another great question. It is not the Parks Department. Actually, there are private donors that pay for a large chunk of those. They actually pay for all of the flowers. Now, the Parks Department, we do partner with. If those flowers get damaged, they're not gone for long. We work with the Parks Department to replenish, as well as some of the local florists as well, to replenish those. But those are private donations that go to purchase those flowers.
Cool, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yield.
All right, looks like there are no other questions, so thanks for being here tonight, D'Amico.
Thank you,
Appreciate
guys.
it. Okay, next presentation is Black Hills Works, CDBG funded project presentation. And that's Community Development Block Grant. We've got a few of these presentations tonight.
All right. Thank you for having us. We are so grateful to be here. My name is Andrea Cerna. I'm the foundation president of the foundation, and this is my colleague.
I'm Tammy Hopp, Director of Philanthropy for the foundation.
And we have another colleague here in the back. Her name is Christina. Wave, Christina. Thank you. And we are here to talk about the incredible things that we have been able to do because of the Community Development Block Grant Funds. So this, in a nutshell, is the list of things that we have been able to do over the past 3 years through this fund mechanism. And we'll go through each one of these and we'll show you some people that you're impacting. The first one here is the Governor's Home, and this one is specific to people with brain injuries. So you're supporting our brain injury program. It's located off of Range Road, and CDBG funds were used to do the foundation and a lot of the groundwork. You can see we have the groundbreaking there, and obviously they brought in the Governor's Home, and then the 3 gentlemen that share this home are right here.
These are Matt, Corey, and Andy, and what I hope you'll take away as we go through this presentation, I mean, CDBG is a lot about funding stuff, walls and concrete and building, but it's really about the people who are ultimately impacted, and that's who we'll be introducing you today as we go through our presentation.
These guys are very proud of their home,
They are.
which is pretty cool.
When we went to the home, it was actually my first time touring the governor's house, and Corey in particular was really, really proud. He took us to all the rooms and just, you know, showed us around like it's his home. It's not just a place he's getting treatment, he is home.
That's the gentleman with the big smile there.
Yeah.
The next project, this was pre-COVID, that's why people are standing so close together. This was the locker rooms that CDBG funds used to bring our locker rooms up to speed. And we did a ceremonial groundbreaking-ish, and you can see Michelle was there to join us and a number of other partners. This was a bigger part of our gym project, which the Vision funds helped to make possible as well. So all the guys on the left, the guys and gals on the right-hand side, excuse me, those are a lot of the people who are impacted and who use the gym on a daily basis pre-COVID. Today it's a little bit different. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say what's really cool, though, as Andrea just said, the people we support that you see there do use the gym pretty much daily. During COVID, obviously things were changed up, but even during COVID, we had people from the community using the gym every single day. It was all done very safely and through sign up and with all the proper sanitation. But this is truly a unified center in that the community, we have club volleyball using the space, youth sports using the space.
Special Olympics.
Special Olympics.
Yeah.
So it's really become a place for the community to enjoy as much as the people we support.
And this is what the locker rooms look like before, kind of an old gym locker room. If you ever played sports, even high school, this is kind of what they look like back in the day. And fortunately, because of CDBG, this is what they look like now.
Big improvement. Although I do wonder where those lockers went, because they're kind of retro, kind of cool.
Another improvement that we made in here, you'll notice the gray tones, and gray may be a little boring, but the colors that we used in the space are actually on the autism spectrum. And there's actually a color spectrum that you can select the different paints, and it actually is used to calm, it's different colors, and every color in that building now is on the spectrum, so it's all autism friendly. And here's some
more of the people we support, and actually the Flame is represented. They're our youth Special Olympics team in town. So again, it's become really a great place for the community to enjoy.
And this home is currently it's under construction, it's in progress. This was kind of a combination. We were gifted the land on Curtis Street. That was part of CDBG. And then the money was granted based on what we wanted to do. And this home will provide a home to 4 people with disabilities. And
We have 3 of them shown here. We're actually still in the process of determining who would be the best fit for this home, but at least JJ and James, going from left to right, are already ready to call Curtis Street home. Derek is thinking about it, and of course there's some other prospects to make it a four-person home.
And the final project that we can accredit to the CDBG program is the gym entryway. So now this is the last piece of the gymnasium and the Learning Institute project that needs to be updated. And what we'll do is we'll make the gym entry point more accessible. We'll have a different sliding door, and it will be a more friendly opening. We will also have 2 offices, so we will be opening up that space more to community members. We'll be sharing the offices with our Flame counterparts. Flame is the kids' Special Olympics team, and then our Special Olympic delegation will be there as well. So that's under construction now. And this is Mr. Derek, and in case you can't read that, it says thank you for everything you do. We are truly grateful for all the support we get in the community, and not just CDBG funds, which, Michelle, we are so grateful for the partnership. CDBG has been wonderful. But just as people go to a grocery store, and they're so kind to the people we support, we get wonderful notes, people who noticed staff supporting people to the fair. We're just very grateful for our community.
And we can't say thank you enough. So thank you to the City Council for the vision funds that we created. I'll add my own thank you to Michelle. She makes what is a very complicated process as easy as it can be for organizations looking to seek support for worthy projects, and the committee that helps select those projects. We're really, truly very grateful.
Any questions?
All right, well, thank you for being here tonight. We'll go to Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Dr. Serna. I appreciate the presentation, and to the group that you have. And I also want to extend gratitude to Michelle Schulke for helping you set up this presentation, because one of the fundamental questions that I've got is who is being awarded the CDBG and how do they use it? So you've set a pretty good high bar tonight to explain how do you folks use the CDBG. And thank you very much for the presentation.
You're very, very welcome. And we would love to show any of you. If any of you want to see any of these locations, give us a call. Our contact information is here, and we'll set up a tour of the space. It's pretty cool. Then you can meet some people and see what it looks like.
Great. Well, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is Working Against Violence Incorporated, also CDBG funded project presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Allender and City Council members. I'm Heidi Minkum, the Development Director for Wavy, and my Executive Director, Linda Schroll, is also here to support me. So first, I'd like to start off with giving you some of our statistics. In 2020, Wavy's provided 17,492 services to 2,845 clients. Of those 2,845 clients, 952 clients stayed in the Wavy shelter for a cumulative of 10,819 days. Now, if we were to divide the number of clients, 952 by 13, which is the number of rooms that Wavy has at the shelter for clients staying and needing a safe place to be, that number would be, the sum would be 73. That means that Wavy had 73 clients staying in each room throughout 2020. Additionally, the original windows were installed when the building was constructed in 2004. As the numbers begin to add up, you can begin to understand that over 17 years, our windows have seen a lot of wear and tear. The original windows had crank-type handles that were turned to extend a mechanical arm to open them. The screens were on the inside of the windows, making them accessible to clients. By the time Wavy was awarded our CDBG grant funding, several of the handles and arms had been broken, and screens were damaged and missing. This made many of the windows unusable for the client and the shelter. Sorry. The new windows, we did the window replacement in 2 phases. The project was completed by Seagull Construction, and the total amount spent was $60,374 on a total of 32 windows throughout the 3 levels of the shelter. The windows were manufactured by Pella and customized to match the building finishes. Phase 1 was completed on March 21st. 16 windows were installed, mainly in the areas where the clients were most accessing the shelter. This would include the clients' rooms, the dining room, and our advocate offices. $38,905 was spent on that phase. The second phase was completed in July 2021. 16 windows were installed in the office areas as well as the basement of the shelter, and $21,469 was spent on that phase. The new windows are double hung, insulated, and the screens are on the outside of the windows. Hopefully this provides some durability and longevity for the windows. And these are some photos that are taken of the exterior of our building after the installation had been completed. The windows on the inside have and I learned the window anatomy just for this presentation, they have a lever sash lock on the middle rail and a lift handle at the bottom to open the windows. Each window also has a sensor installed for security purposes, and these are some pictures of the interior of the windows after the project was completed. We would like to extend a special thanks to Michelle Schulke as well for her patience and assistance with us in this project. She was very helpful all throughout our process. We would also like to express our gratitude to the city for the opportunity to receive the CDBG grant funding so that we could make these needed repairs to the shelter. Thank you for this opportunity and your time.
Thank you, Heidi. Appreciate you being here tonight. And it looks like we don't have any questions. So the next on the agenda is Youth and Family Services for a CDBG funded project.
Good evening. My name is John Julius. I'm the CEO of Youth and Family Services. And with me tonight is Mike Smith, our Chief Operations Officer. I'd like to start off as we too are very grateful for all those people who are involved with the Community Development Block Grant to help us through the process and to be there to fund some of the projects that we have had going on at Youth and Family Services. Youth and Family Services has a wide variety of programs and options available for underserved and underprivileged children and families. We do things starting in child care for infants and toddlers. We work with preschool age students through our Head Start program. We have a school age program, Girls Incorporated program, family support and advocacy service, counseling services, and nutrition services. And so we provide a lot of different types of programs and have those available for those in need. And so we want to illustrate some of the ways that these funds have been extremely valuable and important for these services to be able to provide an environment for the people who access services so that they are comfortable and safe. And then also to point out that this is also something that allows these services to be provided for some time, because it has the buildings set up so that we're able to continue providing services for many years to come because of these funds. So up front, thank you very much, and here's Mike Smith.
Hello. Thanks for having us. I'm Mike Smith, Chief Operations Officer at Youth and Family Services, and I want to echo what everybody else has said tonight. Thanks for having us tonight. Thanks for your support throughout the years, and I also want to thank Michelle and her staff down in her office. They're great to work with. They help us along the way, so thank you. Over the years, we've had several projects that have been funded through the Community Development Block Grant. We've replaced a chiller. I'll talk about another chiller tonight. Turned a closet into a little girl's restroom in our GI program. Regraded our alley north of our building that helped make way for our expansion. Helped us remodel our kitchen at 410 East Monroe Street, which is a city-owned building. I'm going to talk briefly tonight about two of our most recent projects that were partially funded through the Community Development Block Grant. The first one is a Girls Incorporated chiller project, which is a condensing unit. We had to replace it. And then the Adams Kitchen Makeup Air Handling Unit project. Why replace? Well, we know that they were both very old. The chiller, we know for a fact that it was installed in 2003. The makeup air handling unit, we're not entirely sure when this thing was born. Legend has it that it came from either our Wood Avenue building or the old DAV building, but we're not sure. We just know that it was old, failing, and had costly repairs. Last year alone, it was like $5 grand in labor and repairs. So we knew it was time. The Girls Incorporated chiller replacement, it's essentially a big air conditioning unit. It supplies cooling to the Girls Incorporated wing of our building, 120 East Adams. This space, it cools about 25,000 square feet to include our classrooms, Girls Incorporated classrooms, offices, computer lab, our library, teaching kitchen, game room, and additional multi-use rooms. We replaced the unit because one compressor was dead. Another compressor was failing, and we're faced with $7,000 to $9,000 in repairs to replace it. And the motherboard wasn't communicating with the unit nor our temperature controls. So we knew this thing had to be replaced, and we actually replaced its twin a year earlier because it had the same symptoms. The project was completed in February of this year. Total project cost was $135,000. We received $115,000 from the Community Block Grant and secured an additional $20,000 in funding to finish the project. The current project is the Adams Kitchen Makeup Air Handling Unit. Oh, there we go. Sorry. The current project is the Adams Kitchen Makeup Air Handling Unit Replacement Project. I know that's a mouthful. This unit sits above our commercial kitchen at 120 East Adams. It has the makeup air unit has two main functions. One, it replaces the air that is lost when the kitchen exhaust fan is running, and two, it helps temper the air in the kitchen. This project should be completed by the end of the week. Fingers crossed. They are just dialing in the occupancy cycles and integrating the temperature controls into our system, which provides better functionality and management of the piece of equipment. We replaced the unit, of course, because of the age, unknown, inconsistent, unreliable temperatures, and mounting repairs. Again, it's like last year was $5 grand. The total project is $199,000. We received $110,000 from the Community Development Block Grant, and we secured an additional $89,000 to complete the project. I do want to add that in the design phase of this project, we were able to engineer a more efficient design for the equipment that uses this space. So the original design, the exhaust fan always had to run. So always had to run when the unit was running. So that's just an energy waste. So with the new unit design, the exhaust fan only runs when needed. And the unit will regulate the air more efficiently while enabling drastic temperature changes. Because you have an influx of air going out, so the temperature changes. The unit has to work overtime to balance it out. So we feel over the course, year over year, it'll be cost savings to the agency because the piece of equipment won't have to work as hard to maintain the temperatures. Positive impact. Positive impacts from the Community Development Block Grants, go beyond the energy savings, equipment, and infrastructure upgrades. It's really, it's really a cooling and comfortable environment that we can provide to our staff, to our kitchen staff, right, for the kitchen. Last year, pre-COVID, I'll say, they provided over 275,000 meals and snacks out of this kitchen. That's an incredible amount. The girls who attend our Girls Incorporated program, over 100,000. That's a lot of girls who are using our facility. And like to echo what John said, upgrade to these pieces of equipment further, keep the buildings longer and in good shape. So it allows us to use more dollars towards the programs to serve our children instead of infrastructure projects. Because infrastructure projects aren't that exciting. They are to some people, like to me, but not to the general population. So we're very appreciative and support that we receive from the Community Development Block Grant. We feel we put this money to good use. Thank you. I've got a slide or a document camera. I want to show you these beauties if I can get this to work. There we go. Beautiful, aren't they? This is the chiller that we replaced for the Girls Incorporated section of the building. There's our kitchen makeup air handling unit. Again, not that exciting, but it keeps the building cool and keeps everybody happy. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Yep.
Okay, we'll conclude the presentation. So we're going to go to Darla Drew.
I'd like to thank the mayor for putting this together for us tonight, and Michelle, too, for her work on these things. As the mayor has pointed out before, we don't necessarily give a lot of money to nonprofit organizations, but if we didn't have this good work that these organizations do, we'd have to pay for it with city dollars. And so it's very important that the CDBG program exists in our community and that we're able to help out really terrific organizations that help our community so much. Thank you.
Okay, moving on the agenda. Next up is general public comment. This is a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at this meeting on any issue not on the agenda except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the city council members present. We have one speaker request form tonight from Chuck Henry.
I just want to give kudos to Black Hills Works. I was a person served by them, and their staff loves what they do. And sometimes, right now, they're looking for more staff, and it's a great place to be, to work with people with disabilities. Because I believe people with disabilities do a better job than regular folks, is what I heard. Oh, other day I toured Summit Arena, and it is looking great. And I wanted to stand on the bottom of it, and man, it's big. And it's going to be ADA friendly, not just the requirements, but it's going to be ADA friendly. A lot of you know that I'm big on ADA, and Mayor happened to put me on the interior design committee on it, and it's going to be great. Big elevators, everything. After I heard the mayor talking about homelessness and putting $150,000 toward it, I kind of decided I was going to work with Julie Fry-Mailer about the downtown problem, but homelessness is the whole city. So I'm looking at working with the police department on it, and I want to meet with the mayor sometime to get his ideas, what he has. And I'm going to do some ride-alongs with that special unit that the police department has that takes care of checking on the homeless and that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chuck, and that'll conclude our general public comment. Next on the agenda, the non-public hearing items, 5 through 46. There are no speaker requests for items 5 through 36, so we move on to consent items 5 through 36. Does the council have a motion or wish to pull any of these items? A motion by Jones for approval of consent items, second by Bill Evans. Items 5 through 36 on consent tonight. All in favor of approval of the consent calendar, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Takes us on to non-consent items 37 through 46. We'll open public comment on these items. We have one speaker request on items 40 and 41. That's Kittrick Jeffries. And I didn't mention it before, but our speakers tonight will have 3 minutes to address the City Council. Is Kittrick still here? You're up.
I'm up.
You're up. Good timing.
Okay, good timing. I was watching it on YouTube. And which, are we speaking to 6501 or 05?
You'll be talking about 40 and 41.
All right, yep.
So both of them.
Cool. My name is Kit Jeffries. I represent Dakota Cannabis Consulting here in Rapid City. I just wanted to speak on 6501 really quick, the smoking ban in Rapid City. Dakota Cannabis Consulting views that as good public policy. And then on 6505, just wanted to bring a couple key items up before the council. And I just want to say right off the bat too, I appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this, whether it's the city attorney's office, the council, planning and zoning. You guys have done a really good job, worked really hard, and I appreciate that. First thing I want to talk about is numerical limits, and I understand the thought of a conservative approach to licensing medical cannabis dispensaries. Well, we don't know the market cap. We don't know how much money this is going to bring. I haven't seen a fiscal report from any source on how much marijuana can be sold in Rapid City. But by capping it at 15 licenses, if the market cap is in the millions of dollars, right now the way rules, ordinance, and statute reads is that it goes to a lottery on who becomes millionaires in the city. So I've always been a firm believer of the free market. Free market, by definition, is an economic system in which prices are determined by unrestricted competition between privately owned businesses. I'd like to see an unrestricted amount of licenses with dispensaries. The market will decide how many dispensaries can come into play. I know the number's 15. You look at packaged off-sale liquor, it's 47. If you guys have to decide on how many licenses, or you guys have to pick a number, decide on something more similar to packaged off-sale licenses, or packaged off-sale liquor licenses. I did want to talk about the prohibition on transfer of license to another locations, wildly uncommon. Transfer of license to another individual is wildly uncommon. In all other states, you can essentially sell, and it's allowed by department rules, you can sell or transfer a business license for a medical cannabis establishment to other individuals or other locations. Also want to talk about the revocation of a license from the failure to prevent theft. This is something that's happening in Sioux Falls City Council right now as we're speaking. One of the topics that's brought up is, as a stakeholder, if I go to open a dispensary and I submit all the security plans, I follow through with all those security and standard operating procedures, I can't prevent somebody coming in and breaking down my door to steal medical marijuana. I can do everything. I can put silent alarms, I can put notifications out to the police, whatever it is, but I shouldn't be penalized for having somebody break into my establishment. So I'll be around for questions if anybody's got any. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. And that'll conclude the public hearing portion for these items. We'll move on to item 37 under finance items. Approve resolution of intent 2021-086 to take the statutorily authorized increase in property tax as part of the annual appropriation ordinance for 2022. Motion approved by Drew and a second by Nordstrom. Okay, seeing no discussion, all in favor of approval of item 37 say aye. Aye. Opposed? Aye. Motion passes with one no from Mr. Roberts. Under ordinances, starting with item 38. First reading, ordinance 6506 regarding FY 2022 appropriation ordinance. Item 38, first reading of the appropriation ordinance. Motion to approve by Drew. Second. Second by Pat Jones. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 39, second reading of ordinance 6502 regarding supplemental appropriation number 5 for 2021. Motion to approve, Nordstrom. Second. Second by Lehman. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 40, second reading of ordinance number 6501, an ordinance to prohibit public smoking of marijuana by adopting section 8.32.060 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. Motion to approve by Jones. Second. Second by Roberts. All in favor of approval of item number 40, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We got two late speaker requests for item 41. For people who are in the audience here, I would leave it up to the council if we want to open the public comment period back up for these items so these can be heard. I'd like to hear from council on this if we want to do that. Motion to everybody nod yes or no. Okay. We have consensus. That's how government works. Okay, we're going to open back the public comment period for two more speakers. The first one, Paul Lloyd.
Thank you for opening up the discussion again. I would like to take the counter view from the gentleman before me. I would suggest that we have a lower number of dispensaries to begin with. You can always open it up and go for more. But in the initial onset of this, I think it would be wise with all the regulations and things that we don't know about and are still being worked out, a lower number is better than a higher. I looked on St. Cloud, Minnesota, I believe, is a town roughly our size. I think they have one. The state of Arkansas, with about 3 million people, has about 20 for the whole state. And I believe Sioux Falls is looking at 5. So my question is, why are we going with so many at the beginning instead of let's starting lower and seeing how things unfold? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, Ron Jeffries.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for giving me a brief moment to speak with you. Wanted to just talk about two items that are currently drafted in your proposed rules. First one is a transfer of location of a cannabis established property. First, if you require somebody to stay in the same spot they're always in, two things. One, if you lease that property, you are subject to a landlord coming back and doing lease gouging once your business is established. So as you make more money, your $3,000 a month rent goes to 5 to 10 to 15 or 20, whatever number you can bear, because your license is tied to that property. The way to avoid that is to purchase a piece of property. But you're asking the businesses to purchase a piece of property prior to ever getting a license. So you put potential business operators in a very precarious position. Either buy a piece of property not knowing whether or not you're going to reach an approval or a license from either the city or the state, or putting in a position where a landlord can take advantage and do lease gouging of that existing property. Second is the transfer of ownership. I think you do need to, there's a restriction on any transfer of ownership. I think you should consider what happens with death or disability of a principal within an operation, what happens when you have any portion of that business that turns over through, primarily through death, but it can be through a number of other items that would cause somebody to have to sell that. Could be stroke or inability to function as an operator of that building or of that business. So I think you should look at that, if you could please, to look at that. Also consider that approximately 20% of all cannabis operations that go into business fail in the first 3 years for a variety of reasons. So you start down that path and there's no way to have anybody else provide any additional input, no opportunity for expansion if there's no change in locations. I think there are two items that you should consider, and I appreciate your attention to that. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. And now we're going to close that public comment period and get back to the agenda on item 41. First reading of ordinance number 6505, an ordinance to adopt rules governing medical cannabis establishments by amending chapter 5.74 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. We'll go to Bill Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with the comments put forth by both the younger and the older Jeffries, and I appreciate the fact that they're thinking ahead and trying to prevent problems that are going to show up. So I am probably going to vote against this tonight because I think we need to modify some of the rules. I will go back to the fact that from the very germinal stages of this discussion, I still believe that the city should become the dispensary and all of these millions of dollars, rather than go to new mansions up at Carriage Hills, go to filling these potholes we have, because this is definitely a revenue source that we can access, and I'd rather see all the citizens of Rapid City take the revenue in, and if it only pays for as much policing that has to be added and covers all of that with problems, I would call it a big success. So that's where I'm going to stand on this, as I have from the very beginning. Thank you.
Greg Stroman.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Mr. Evans in that I think both Mr. Jeffries have made some very important points that we need to consider before we pass an ordinance. And I wondered if I could ask the younger Mr. Jeffries a few questions, please.
Yes, I'm sure he's willing.
Kit Jeffries, Dakota Cannabis Consultant. Go ahead.
Well, Kit, the comments that you made regarding 5.74.070, which is the numerical limits, would you explain? I know you were kind of pressed for time earlier, but you still did a great job, and I appreciate all the help you've given us trying to navigate these waters, because you do have a lot of experience across the country. But just talk a little bit about numerical limits and why you think that the unlimited or the free market is a better approach than to put some arbitrary number on there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes back to my South Dakota values. I agree with the governor in keeping open for business and wanting business to thrive in the state of South Dakota, which we've done through the COVID pandemic. And when we look at the likes of Minnesota, that was mentioned by a speaker before me, Minnesota has a variety of different dispensaries that operate within the entire state. However, they only have two vertically integrated companies, two parent companies that own those licenses. So there's only competition really between the two people that won the lottery that had the opportunity to get into business. You look at that in North Dakota as well. There's 10 licenses total, and when the cap gets put on those licenses, the value increases. We see that with our alcohol licensing today. You look at states like Oregon. I talked to one of my really good friends who owns dispensaries out in Oregon, and back in 2018, they put a cap on the amount of licenses that they were going to allow for dispensaries. And they were looking at selling, once the cap had been established, they were looking at selling those licenses for 2.5 times gross of what they average in a year. Once the cap was lifted in late 2019, it went back down to 1.5 of net, because it would make no sense for a prospecting stakeholder to buy an existing establishment other than for their infrastructure. Same thing with Oklahoma. Oklahoma has a true free market system. You have $2,500. You can go in, and you're an Oklahoma resident. You can go in and get a cannabis license. We see that within Oklahoma in that the year 2020, they had 8% market fall off, even though they issued over 600 licenses. There's market fall off because the market can only hold what the market can sustain. So we see that in most other businesses. If there are restaurants, too many of them, they're going to fall off. And so to answer the question, that's pretty much what I had.
Okay, and then with regard to the other 5.74.100 regarding transfers, you have some pretty strong feelings about that. And is it my understanding that you're okay with, you think it's wise to have transfers if there's a revocation but not just a denial? And would you explain what that is?
Yeah, so in transferring of licenses, the Department of Health in their rules have allowed the opportunity to transfer a license from a person to person or an entity to an entity. And with the ordinance that's in place, or the tentative ordinance that we're talking about, it prohibits that. And same thing with the transfer of location. The Department of Health allows the opportunity to transfer location. And some of the things that were spoken by a previous speaker were that because this is a new emerging market, you have to allow the opportunity. The department recognizes allowing the opportunity for change. If I go and get an establishment out on, or if I own a building on Campbell, or rent a building on Campbell, and the landlord tries to hike up the price, but then I rent a building on Jackson Boulevard, I should be allowed the opportunity to just go, all right, man, well, I'm not going to pay the $20,000 or whatever, and I'm going to transfer that license back over to my Jackson location. And so I guess if you had one more question, you had two questions kind of wrapped up into one. What was the other question in there?
I think you answered my questions, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your input. I think that he raises some good points, that there's a couple of problems with the ordinance and the areas that he's discussed, and so I'd like us to take another look at the proposed ordinance to incorporate those changes.
Thank you. I'll still be around.
Darla Drew.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. So I have a question for our city attorney, Joel Landine. Could I please ask him a question?
Please.
Okay, so when we're looking at this lease gouging possibility, is that something that we also protect the liquor businesses with? Do we have any kind of a transfer they can't do, or, you know, what is our liquor laws or ordinances that reflect this kind of a change?
Well, I think the reason for the rules and the dilemma we have is that certain liquor licenses have limits, others don't. So the ones that don't really have a value, so the business has a value, not the license. So what we've seen is with the liquor licenses with a cap, the business has a value, but the license has a separate value. And so one of the discussions, and the reason the rules were written the way they were written, is this is what some communities, when the council has said we want to impose a cap, one of the ways we've tried to not create a value in the license itself. Now, if that's something that doesn't concern you, then you could remove these restrictions, but understand the impact of that is probably going to be the license now has a value. And if Mr. Jeffries is right and 15 is too low a number for Rapid City, then that value could be pretty high for that license. And once you have that value and you try to take it away, that's where you see with the liquor license, like when we had restaurants and there weren't any liquor licenses available and a restaurant was looking at paying $300,000 or $400,000 for a liquor license, and it just didn't make business sense. So I think when you think about these rules, and Carla can go more into the details about the lease and some of that stuff, but we don't have those restrictions on the liquor licenses. We did talk through it. One of my concerns is a situation where somebody has a business and they want to sell the business. And I believe that the license is transferable if you sell the business. Now, that is probably going to likely require you to form a corporation, and essentially you just sub out or sell the corporation. The corporation holds the license. So technically the license hasn't transferred, but the ownership of the corporation has. So there are some ways to try to allow that, because I do agree that if you had a situation where somebody owned a business, they got to the point they wanted to retire, and they can't transfer the license, then you have the opposite problem, that business now has no value. So, I mean, it's a pretty sticky issue of how to resolve it. One thing I would point out and caution you is we're up against a time crunch. And I mean, I'm hearing from both sides. I talked to a state legislator today who said, I think you're out ahead of the curve and you need to wait and see, because we're still talking about changes to the statutes for medical marijuana. But the problem is the state is about to adopt rules at their next rules hearing. The rules for medical marijuana are going to be in place probably by mid-October. If you don't approve first and second reading on the next two meetings, we are not going to have any rules in place when the state potentially is taking applications. And at that point, you're not going to have a cap because there aren't going to be any rules in place.
Okay, well, I think you're up next, so I'd just like to jump back in here. We don't have any leverage at this point for recreational, so we don't really know what that cap might be. That might be a different amount of licenses for that. I want to let the council know that the Custer County Commission today decided that their applications are where they're going to make their money. And they are going to charge $50,000 for the application process, not for the license, for the application process. So Bill, like you were thinking that we need to help the police with some of the, I don't know, enforcement of this ordinance, that's how Custer's handling it. And yeah, then you have to have big money to get in the game. But it also brings money to the city for some of the things that are going to cost us on this particular licensing and application process. And I don't think we have a cap on medical, but we don't really know what's going to happen with recreational. We're not really gotten to that point yet. So I think for the 15 licenses, I'm very comfortable with that, and I'm comfortable with a lot of the things in this code, and I could vote yes on it tonight. Thank you.
Okay. City Attorney, did you get everything out, or do you need
Well, I just want everyone to be very clear, and I understand that this is a bad situation, and that ideally, I mean, this is the example of trying to build a car as you're driving down the road. Ideally, this would have been set up so we would have known what the state rules were, we would have had the statutes squared away, and then we would have had some time to consider it and adopt rules. But that's unfortunately because, you know, this wasn't initiated, and the people who, the proponents who brought it forward didn't probably give a lot of consideration to how the various governmental entities were going to regulate this. This isn't the way it's worked out. You know, a lot of communities have already adopted their rules. Sioux Falls is at the same spot we are. They're having first reading of their ordinance tonight. But there is, just so you're aware, if ordinances are not in place by the time the state's accepting, there is a potential that we're going to have some grandfathering issues, and we may exceed the cap if we have the first day there's licenses open or the state's accepting licenses, 30 people apply, and then a month later we adopt some sort of cap. It may not apply to those 30 people. So if you don't like the ordinance, I would suggest that you make recommendations for changes that we can bring forward at second reading, and then it can be approved still at second reading. But if we're going to have another meeting or a discussion and not get any changes, and another thing I would point out, you can't make substantive changes at second reading unless they're noticed prior to the meeting. So whatever changes we're going to make to the ordinance are going to have to be made at second reading, or you're going to have a special meeting 5 days after the second reading where you make the changes so that it can become effective. But that will push back the effective date probably by 5 days as well, which we are already going to be right up against the deadline, because it sounds like from what we're hearing from the state that at their next rules meeting they're going to adopt the rules. And it's, if you're going to tell me it's crazy, I agree with you, because I talked to the legislator today, and in November they're going to amend probably the statutes potentially. So the state's adopting, one department of the state's adopting rules, and the legislature's still contemplating changes to the statutes. So,
Okay, for clarification, are you suggesting that the City Council make alterations or suggested alterations to this ordinance tonight?
potentially, at the very least, it's cleaner if we have, if the public, definitely the public needs to be made aware of any changes that are going to occur at second reading before the meeting where we have second reading.
Yep.
But I don't know at this point what the consensus is on changes and how we're going to get a consensus on changes that can pass at second reading if we don't get some direction tonight.
Okay. Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I assumed that that's what he was going to say. I've been up and down this process from video lottery to alcohol licenses to to whatever. I'm indifferent to the amount of licenses that we give out. But I sat into these meetings, and there was a compromise made on basically for every 5,000 people, there would be one license was a place to start. Tonight, you'll see that we're moving to add 6 video lottery licenses to the city. And I am understanding of Mr. Wood's comment about, you know, when we had the video lottery license, I can tell you guys, and I used to entertain a lot of people that would bring in from the airport, and the one thing they would say to me is, man, you guys got a casino on every corner. Okay. And today we don't. It's shaken out, and it took a long time to shake out, but in that period of shakeout, there was a lot of, you know, casinos, weed joints, these types of things. There's some people that love them, there's some people that don't. We're trying to find a happy balance in between what makes sense, okay? I think that Mr. Landine is correct. I'd like to see the transferring of licenses be able to happen amongst people. The one thing you learn about government is cause and effect. I mean, there's businesses that go out of business overnight because of government regulations and those types of things. If we try to sit up here and try to foresee and regulate every simple thing of how much a license costs for a business to go into operation, is not really my concern. My concern is to try to get something that's a balance for the people that don't want a marijuana and for the people that do want marijuana. I think we've struck in a fairly good balance here. We've put a lot of time and effort into this, and I know our staff has, everybody has, the people that have been in the meetings have, and I think by bringing the transfer back, make that available to transfer. The other concern I had was if someone was denied a license, that they'd have to wait 2 years to apply again. I could see that being a problem over something small. I mean, I think that we need to make that, I understand what some of that would be, where it would be going with that if they had a background check they failed, or if they committed fraud or something that just was illegitimate. But if they just got denied because of something simple, I'd hate to see that they didn't get a chance to reapply for a license within 2 years. So whatever the council decides on, if a cap, no cap, I'm not in favor of the city selling marijuana. Most of my constituents don't want to be a part of that. They would rather leave that to the free market. But if there's a cap, not cap, I can go either way, understanding that you're gonna take the heat from the people that come to town and see a marijuana dispensary on every corner. They're gonna make those comments to you, you know. So I'm not sure where that cap may lie, but tonight I would like to see us change the transfers to make it transfer, so we're not creating some kind of false identity there for somebody who owns a building. I mean, the other thing is that you have to understand that we've zoned this, so it takes a lot of the decision process out of it. If it fits the zoning requirements, you can put it there. If it doesn't fit those zoning requirements, you can't. That in amongst itself will eliminate the amount of establishments that can go into place. So there's not just a cap or a no cap or whatever. There's zoning requirements. If you don't meet those zoning requirements, you don't get to put your establishment in that area. So that protects a lot of the people that have residentials or churches, or I think there's schools, those types of things that we've looked at. There's a sheet that's available out there that shows you, if you start to identify which spots are really available, you'll see there's also a cap that could be created by zoning. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. If we could get these changes in, I could vote tonight.
Pat Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. A question for City Attorney Mr. Landine, and then Mr. Jeffries, sitting in the corner back there. I would like your comment as well on my question. So if you would, sir, after I'm done with the attorney. So on the topic of being able to transfer the licenses, theoretically, could someone buy a license to transfer to someone who already has a license to allow them to create one large corporation and a bunch of DBAs and LLCs that end up being SOL to manage, or pardon me, to control a bunch of licenses rather than just having their own?
I'm going to defer to Carla Cushman in my office, who actually drafted the ordinance on some of the transfer issues.
Carla?
The ordinance requires the licenses to be actively used. So I think your proposal where people, if you allow transfer to a location where they house all of the, or multiple licenses at one location to hoard them, I think is what you're predicting, and take them out of use, I think that would not be allowed because those licenses have to be actively used.
No, it was not to hoard them, it would be to use them and have one ownership group have multiple establishments.
Oh, sure.
Buying or acquiring licenses, transferring licenses from someone who buys one, transferring it to them, and someone else doing it with the ultimate goal of accumulating numerous licenses, having them in business, and having a monopoly on the market.
Well, the ordinance today doesn't really limit the number of licenses one person can hold. But as you mentioned, the way that you address that is that you set up different corporations, which is completely fine. I think that's a good way to operate as a business, and we can't really prohibit that, or we haven't prohibited that in the ordinance to try to prevent people from getting multiple licenses. I would say that as just in defense of the transfer of location ordinance that we wrote, while this may not be, somebody said it wasn't in other states, it is in almost every ordinance that I've read from South Dakota, because cities here are concerned with speculators coming in and buying up the licenses and then selling them to the highest bidder. And I think that we were concerned that that would be the case, that these would be, licenses would be available or would be valuable on their own and therefore would invite speculation. And one of the ways that we got around that was by limiting the transfer of the location, which is something that other cities have been doing in South Dakota too.
Thank you. Mr. Jeffries, if you would, please.
Yep. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks.
Good. So if you could respond to my question or my concern, I guess, is that from a business practice, is that something that you would see happening?
Typically, when you limit the number of licenses available, you create more opportunity for monopolies. You see it in North Dakota. North Dakota had 10 licenses available. Through their application process, it was actually a gentleman in Chicago, Illinois, who was an attorney who ended up acquiring 4 of those licenses throughout the entire state. He ended up then turning around and selling those licenses to the largest cannabis company in the world, and that's Cura. And he sold them on average for $27 million a license. So in essence, by capping the amount of licenses available, you create the opportunity in the window for a stakeholder to come in and go, well, there's market share that can be eaten up. Their licenses is available. If they're looking to sell, I'll give them a price they can't refuse, and they'll sell that license so that I can control more market share. In Oklahoma, if you bought a license from somebody for more than $100,000, and that's just on infrastructure alone, including the license, if you bought it for more than $100,000, you'd be laughed out of every single cannabis conference in the country. And the reason why that is because they're available from the city and the state for $2,500. And that's just where monopolies come into play. You don't see monopolies in Oklahoma where the free market's working. Thank you.
So I guess I'm not a businessman, so I don't know if the allowing of the creation of these kinds of monopolies or whatever would be a good thing or a bad thing as this moves forward. Again, this is one of those things that we don't know and won't know until we get further into this. Thank you.
John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I really like the idea of a free market in this, and I think that would keep us from having a monopoly. I don't know if there's the appetite on this council to have unlimited amounts of licenses. Kind of reminds me of what Mr. Weifenbach was saying when video lottery first came to Rapid City. It did seem like we had one on every single street corner. And that's because we came forward with a bunch of licenses right up front. But eventually, that problem shook itself out. It did take quite a while. Personally, what I would like to see is I would like to see just 5.74110, that whole thing just struck out of this ordinance. If that was struck out of the ordinance where, or 100, I mean, for the transfer prohibited, if that was struck out, I would be happy to vote on this tonight. I think that if we don't allow the transfer, we're running into some issues. If you look at off-sale liquor licenses, on-sale liquor licenses, they're all transferable. You know, we as a city, of course, we have to look at how we're going to allow that. We got to make sure that when they're transferred, they're not transferred to somebody that wouldn't be allowed to have one of these licenses in the beginning. You know, so, you know, the city has to vet them just like a new license when they're being transferred, and I think we do that now with liquor licenses, don't we? You can't just go buy a liquor license and have a felony, and, you know, they have to go to somebody that can actually have that license. So, you know, and again, is that going to create these licenses being worth more money? Absolutely it is. But they're going to be worth a lot of money to begin with anyway, and the majority of the people that I've talked to that are looking at, you know, starting this up as a business in Rapid City, they want to start it up as a business. And they're not just looking for a license to buy, to turn and flip and make some money with it. So far the people that I've talked to, and they're looking at spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, it's not like this is going to be something that's going to be cheap for somebody to do up front. And I think the majority of the people that I've spoke with so far, they are coming into this with their eyes open. They know what they're going to have to spend. But again, if you can't transfer that license, you know, because I've talked to people that are looking at signing 10-year leases up front because they don't know what's going to happen with that lease, and with, you know, things like this where if you sign a 2 or a 3-year lease, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, yeah, your lease may quadruple or may go, you know, who knows. So, and also it's going to help increase property values in Rapid City for some of these commercial spaces that are within these boundaries. So, to the right people looking for the right things. So, you know, I think there's good opportunity for Rapid as far as taxes, and, you know, it's something that I think we all knew was coming eventually. You know, we saw it 10 years ago. We knew that it was going to happen. I think that it's important now that we do it the right way at the beginning. I think that if we overregulate it, we could come into a lot of issues. So again, you know, I would be happy with this. I'm not too thrilled about the 15 licenses, but I think it's a start, and I think it's something that, you know, maybe we could take a look at depending on, you know, what this does in the future. But what scares me about that also is if you limit it to 15 licenses now and all of a sudden you got 15 businesses that are just booming, making all kinds of money, and you come in and say, well, we decided now we're going to make it 30 licenses or we're going to make it 45 licenses, then we deregulate those licenses, just like happened when the restaurant liquor license came in, and, you know, everybody that had a on-sale liquor license, it was worth $500,000-$600,000, and they dropped to $400,000 overnight. So, you know, I mean, we've got to be very careful on this dais what we do going into the future. So, you know, I would, if I was going to recommend, if I was going to make recommendations here, I would probably recommend that we drop that 5,000 to, you know, at least 2,500 or 2,000 like we have it on video lottery license, or we're going to have it on video lottery licenses. You know, I believe, especially with the zoning and the minimal amounts of places that we can put this, people are not going to be wanting to put one right next to somebody else's. So it is going to limit where people put them at and the amount of them. And you know what? If the more licenses you have, the less that license is going to cost if somebody is just buying to speculate on it. So anyway, again, I would recommend, if we go forward with this tonight, that we strike 5.74.00, and then there was one more issue that Kip, you had brought it up, and I didn't write it down. And let me get off, and I'll refresh my memory, and I may come back in. Thank you.
Bill Evans.
Thank you. Well, the only problem I can see with too many licenses is it becomes an enforcement nightmare, and so I'd like to ask Chief Hedrick a question. Do you see that for every license we add, it adds expenses to enforcing this, or is that not an issue?
Well, I can tell you that we've been pretty involved with the city attorney's office as we've worked through this process. You know, there will be a backgrounding portion for us when people put in for a license, but you know, initially after that license is approved, that kind of ends our portion for the application process.
What about for the enforcement? Is that similar to when you're enforcing off-sale liquor and you're doing that sort of stuff? I mean, that's an ongoing expense, correct?
Yeah, that's something that we're going to have to factor in as we move forward.
So if you have one license, it's less of a problem. If you have 500, it's a bigger problem. So that would be the main disadvantage, as far as I can see, the only disadvantage, to have unlimited numbers of licenses. So I go back to my proposal. The city buys Albertsons, has one giant superstore, enforcement problem is over, we get all the money. Thank you.
Ron Weifenbach for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm not sure if Joel's looking for motions tonight or.
I think if you don't want to pass the ordinance as written, yeah, I would like some direction for second reading, or we're not going to be able to approve a second reading at the next meeting.
I don't have enough time to probably do that, but how many, can someone answer how many video lottery licenses we have? Okay, so basically, a lot of those are duplicates, so if you divide that in half, you're looking at about 36 or 37 video lottery licenses, really, because most of them, what the shakeout did was condensed them into, you know, putting 2 licenses in a building, so there's probably 36 locations or whatever. Just so the council knows, I'm fine either way. Like Alderman Evans had said, the more you add, the more compliance you're going to deal with, but we're trying to leave a lot of that ultimate compliance upon the state, so thank you.
Greg Stroman has about 15 seconds left on the clock.
Okay, I agree with John. I would propose that 5.74.070 regarding dispensary numerical limits be geared to 1 per 2,000 population. That would get us about the 35 that Ron Weifenbach's talking about. I'd eliminate 5.74.100, which prohibits transfer of licenses, and I would amend 5.74.110 regarding active use. I would change 120-day time to get up in operation to 1 year. Thank you. Now I'll make a motion.
Second. Hold on. Change 5.74.070 to 1 per 2,000.
500.
Pardon me?
Was it 2,500?
No, per 2,000.
Okay,
Motion.
which would put the cap up around
40.
Okay, and 5.74.100, we would amend that for what again?
I would just take that.
Strike?
Yeah, to strike the prohibition on transfers.
Okay, 5.74.110.
Change the time that they have in order to get in operation from no later than 120 days after the city's issuance to 1 year after the city's issuance.
Okay, so we have motion then on the table to make 3 amendments to this. 1 to 5.74.070, 1 to 5.74.100, and another to 5.74.110. Does everyone understand those modifications on the council? Is there any questions about them on the council? Correct. Yes. The other one is to allow 1 year to be operational instead of 120 days. Correct. Mr. Landine, do you need in? Do you need to talk?
Well, I just want to, I don't know how you want to frame the motion, but approval of, at some point, it's going to have to be approved first reading. So if you want to vote on the amendments first or approve first reading with the amendments, but I just want to make clear we have to approve.
Yep.
You know, the tough thing I will say on the 1 year, the concern, the first year is going to be the tough one to get operational, because you're not going to be able to transport marijuana in through interstate commerce. So before any dispensary is going to be able to open, somebody's going to have to build a grow facility and get it up and running and plant a crop before there's going to be any supply. So the first year or so, I would be surprised if somebody came in as soon as the rules are approved and got a grow operation. I'm guessing at some time in the middle of next year before you really have any dispensaries that can be supplied. So just something to think about. The first year is going to be a little strange in the startup.
Okay, well, this is how I'm going to frame it. We have a motion to approve first reading of this ordinance with 3 amendments. 1, to change the number, the limit of licenses from 15 to 37. The second will be to strike 5.74.100, which has to do with the transfer of a license. The third is 5.74.110, which will change the time to be operational from 120 days to 1 year. That's the motion, and who made the second? Lance Lehman made the second. Now we'll go to John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And it just came to me, the one other thing that the young Mr. Jeffries was talking about was 5.74.080 and item 4, failure to prevent diversion or theft of medical cannabis under license suspension or suspension. I think that needs to be reworded. I have no problem waiting until second reading because I don't think that is a major amendment to this. And we'll look at maybe some language change on that. But I do agree that the way that's written right now could be pretty problematic. So we'll just look at that between now and the next reading. Thank you.
Pat Jones.
Thank you very much, Mayor. After listening to this excellent discussion, I can support 2 of the 3 elements that have been brought forward of the amendments. I can support the concept of the open transfer after listening to what's been said. If we do it already with other licenses and things that we monitor, so it would be, I think, a bit too moralistic to not allow that to take place with this business. I can also support the 1 year allowing to get going because, as our city attorney said, it's going to take a while for people to get up and rolling in the beginning of this. So I can support, excuse me, I can support that. I absolutely cannot support changing to 37 licenses right off the bat. I was comfortable with 15 as a place to start, and if the market wants to grow, we can address it and we can change it. But 37 right off the bat, I think is way too many, and I don't like what that would do, what I believe that would do to our community, because everything that we're doing in dealing with medical marijuana Pat the broken record, is what's going to happen when it goes to recreational. And all of a sudden, in a puff of smoke, we're going to have 37 recreational marijuana places up and open for business. And I'm not ready for that. So I can support the transfer. I think that's a good way to do business. The 1 year also. And I appreciate Mr. Roberts bringing that forward and his good points, and Mr. Jeffries' yours as well. So thank you. Absolutely, 100% of me, every pound of me sitting here filling this chair cannot support changing from the 15 to the 37. And I will have to vote no if those 3 amendments are part of it. I just absolutely cannot support more than doubling what the initial idea was for those reasons. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table, ready for a vote. Does everyone understand the motion with the amendments? Does everyone understand? Okay, let's have a roll call vote, please.
Jones. Jones.
Pardon me, I was visiting with my colleague. Is this the vote? No.
Lehman.
Aye.
Evans. Drew.
No.
Nordstrom.
No.
Weifenbach. Yes. Roberts. Yes. Stroman.
Yes.
Tie vote 4-4.
Okay, personally, I also can't take the large leap after all of the time and effort put into arriving at 15 for a start. And now we've more than doubled that. So the chair tonight on this issue has to vote no. Ron Weifenbach.
Mr. Mayor, procedurally, can we go back and revisit this, or do we have to, can we change the amendment to 15?
I think we've had I'm going to try to answer that and see if I'm wrong, Joel, but I think we've had essentially we had one item on the agenda. We made an agenda to modify it, and I think if you want to take up the issue as the original issue again and start off with modifications, that might be appropriate. Mr. Landine?
Well, yeah, I think we still have to resolve the first reading, hopefully, and it seems like the rub is the change to 37. 2 of the amendments seem to have a majority of the support, so perhaps an appropriate motion would be to approve first reading with the amendment regarding the transfer and the other change without, and keep it at the 15 licenses and have a vote on that.
That'd be my amendment and my motion.
Okay, Ron Weifenbach makes a motion to pass first reading of this ordinance with 2 amendments. One, 5.74.100 to strike out the language about the transferring licenses. The second amendment, 5.74.110, which would change the time to become operational from 120 days to 1 year. Is that correct?
And then I would add changing the licenses to leaving it, I guess that was already in there. 15. The 15 was already in there?
15 was in there.
Okay, then fine, that's right, that's correct.
Okay, that's the motion on the table. Who was the second?
Well, it was me.
Correct. And 15 licenses.
As originally.
Okay, second by Pat Jones. All right. We're going to go back to another roll call and vote on this first reading of this ordinance.
Roberts. Stroman. Jones.
Yes.
Lehman. Evans. Drew. Nordstrom.
Yes.
Weifenbach. Motion passes 7-1.
Okay, thank you everyone for that discussion. And now we are on the way to item 42. First reading of ordinance number 6507, an ordinance amending chapter 2.64 of the Rapid City Municipal Code to implement the recommendations made by the Human Relations Commission Task Force and reflect the terms of the Memorandum of Understanding with the Minnelusahan-Okolakichiapi ambassadors. Ron Weifenbach, do you mean to be in on this?
I was just going to move approval, but I wanted to make a comment.
Okay. Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I read through this, and I'm way more comfortable with the changes that are made here from the past that we had. So I appreciate all the work and effort that went into making this changes. So thank you.
Okay, and then do I have a second from Darla Drew? Sure. Okay. I have a motion and a second for approval on the floor for item 42. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 43, discuss the reconsideration for other city departments to receive hazard pay. And as I understand this is a discussion about it. This is not an item to be voted on tonight. So we'll do it to Darla Drew.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, I've had a change of heart on this one. I spoke about it at a working session. I, at first, was opposed to this. Now, thinking about all the employees and their interaction with the public, I would like to see this voted on for all employees. When we think about the fire or police, all employees got $1,000 according to our vote, even those that worked behind the desk or weren't really in harm's way. I would like to see this be a fair allotment to everybody that worked during the COVID period. In my experience, a lot of people got bonuses, even at the Black Hills Playhouse. You know, we don't have a lot of money there, but everybody that worked this summer got a $200 bonus. So, I mean, I think that this is something the city can do in giving back to the people that worked with us and also giving back to their taxpayers as well. Thank you.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Very briefly, I would like to see some kind of a support come forward so that we can get a vote on, because I feel like a lot of the employees that we are considering right now deserve something. And excuse me, the problem that I've got with this is it's separating out some of the departments and divisions into a different class, and I would like to see all the employees considered as one group rather than the favoritism that can be perceived out of this. So again, I apologize for the voice, so I'm going to cut it short, but I would like to see something come forward that we can support all the remaining employees. Thank you.
Pat Jones.
Thank you very much, Mayor. A term that we heard so often through when the pandemic kicked off and even now was the term essential personnel. We still hear it almost every day in the news. Who's essential personnel? Well, only essential personnel can come to work, or essential personnel, et cetera, et cetera. And I very much supported and still do the bonus that, or the hazard pay, and it's important that we continue to call this hazard pay. It's not just a bonus for hanging around. It's hazard pay for dealing with a hazardous situation. And I supported that 100% and still do. As my colleague Darla Drew has said, she's been thinking a lot about this, as have I. And as I think about our city employees, it's hard for me to think of someone that wasn't essential while all this was going on. Now, I've received, as I'm sure a lot of us have, a lot of emails from people saying, well, I don't think they should get that money because they were working and I didn't have a job. I didn't have a job for 3 months during COVID. But when the city doesn't live up to its obligation to provide services and answer the phone and pay the bills and do what we're supposed to do, the beginning of the crumbling, I mean, that's where the crumbling starts. And our city employees every single one and every single department did what they needed to do, did what their job was to get us through it. Councilwoman Drew, I'm going to quote you again if you don't mind, because you're kind of my favorite tonight. You know, one of the things you talked about was someone who in the finance office answered the phone and listened to someone yelling at them about this or that or the other thing. And, you know, I thought, well, big deal. That's their job, is to answer the phone and get yelled at. But you know what? During this thing, during this pandemic, the calls and the yelling were totally different than what might be the regular that come in. And so all of our employees, who I will consider to be essential personnel, kept the ball rolling and deserve some recognition, because without them, so many other things would have fallen apart. And I usually try to follow the emails and the recommendations that I receive from folks, because they elect us here and they expect us to carry their wishes forward. But as I think this one through and watch as what our folks did, I cannot think of one employee who wasn't essential and shouldn't receive a hazard bonus, as perhaps was recommended, the 1,000 and the 500, right back when we started discussing this, because I think every single one of them deserves it. They kept us moving forward, and it's the least we can do to recognize them and say thank you for doing your job in a manner that is above and beyond the normal day-to-day expectation. Thank you.
Anyone else? No, I don't think we need a motion. This item was not on a previous motion and was not voted down. This item simply wasn't brought to the council in this, only the public safety portion was. So I think it would be sufficient for tonight to direct the city staff to prepare the agenda item to put on the next first possible round of committee meetings. Ron Weifenbach.
I appreciate what you're saying, Mr. Mayor, and I'm going to move to acknowledge the discussion. And the reason I'm doing that is because this discussion's been ongoing, and the colleagues that's not here tonight was one of them that put one item on the agenda. And at that time, when he was getting skewered, I had recommended to my colleagues, if you feel the same way for another department or something, put it on the agenda. So if I move to acknowledge this discussion, and if there needs to be further discussion, I believe that they can go through the same channels that he did. Put it on the agenda, go through the work session, whatever they want to do. So if there's, so I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That works. Okay, we have a motion then to acknowledge this item, second by Greg Stroman. All in favor of acknowledging this item, say aye. Aye. Okay, so Pat Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. Briefly, will this go to the newly split departments now, Legal and Finance and Public Works? So I assume it'll go to Legal and Finance then?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Richie Nordstrom.
Mayor, do you need that formalized as to make it, excuse me, a formal motion to direct staff to bring this item forward?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks. So it'll be on, if we can get on the very next round of committee meetings, and that's where it'll be. Okay. Item 44 under community development items. A request by Brett Grotz for Hart Ranch Development Company for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lots 1 of Block 1 and lots 1 through 17 of Block 2 of Village on the Green, number 3 subdivision, generally described as being located west of Arena Drive and south of Ann Court. And the recommendation is to approve with stipulations. Motion by Jones to approve with stipulations, second by Lehman. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 45, a request by Fisk Land Surveying and Consulting Engineers for J. White for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lots 1 and 2 of JW Estates, generally described as being located at 1640 Skyline Ranch Road, and also the recommendation is to approve with stipulations. Motion by Lehman, second by Stroman. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve with stipulations. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Under staff items, item 46, hold the random drawing for 6 video lottery designation authorizations and award those applications.
Oh, just a second. We have to do
We're going to hold
John.
that. Pauline's got some magic she's going to work here for you.
I'm hoping. Not sure why it's start presentation.
All the names
There we go. So we need 6 random numbers because we were drawing for 6 licenses. I received 43 applications, so you can see it will give us numbers 1 through 43 as our options. Get the numbers, and I'm sure Mr. Winnie has got his numbers already figured out. So 22, 23, 21, 7, 17, and 36 are our random numbers. So then that means 22, 23, and 21 are all Wingard Pot of Gold Casinos at 530 Campbell Street, Suite 2 for 21, 840 Timmins Boulevard, Suite 1 for 22, Suite 1A for 23. 7 is MG Oil at 1109 West Omaha, Suite B. 17 is Sean Clausen at 355 11th Street, Suite 4. And number 36 is also Wingard at 840 Timmins Boulevard, Suite 7A. So I guess I would like authorization to let the other ones know, as Mr. Winnie already would know, that he got 4 out of the 6. So.
Okay, now that you've seen the results, does the council have a motion? Darla Drew, motion to approve the drawing and issue the licenses. And
Actually, clarification, this is not issuing licenses. It authorizes them to have a video lottery designation.
That's what I meant.
They still have to apply.
Okay. Okay, do you understand the motion now that it's been changed to be in its proper form? I'm going to acknowledge, accept the drawing, and award these winners a video lottery designation.
Correct.
Okay, and who was the second? Pat Jones? All right, Bill Evans.
I'm only going to say one thing. This is the reason I'm opposed to limiting the number of marijuana licenses, because this is what you get where the same people keep getting it all the time. And that's the reason I'd like to have one city-owned marijuana dispensary. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Okay, so the motion then on the floor is to approve. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries with 1 no from Mr. Evans. Okay. Now, down to public hearing items 47 through 56. There are no speaker requests on these items, so we'll hold no public hearing. Then we'll go to consent public hearings 47 through 55. Would the council have a motion? Okay, we have a motion from Jones to approve consent. Is there a second? Second by Lance Lehman. That was close. Okay, all in favor of approving consent items 47 through 55, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 56, non-consent public hearing items. Second reading, Ordinance 6499. An ordinance amending Section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by Sitkra LLC for a rezoning request from General Agricultural District to medium-density residential district property generally described as being located southeast of the intersection of County Road West and Brook Street, and the recommendation is to approve in conjunction with a planned development designation. Darla Drew, motion to approve in conjunction with the plan development designation? Yep. Second by Ron Weifenbach. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now, item 57, we'll go back to Finance Director Pauline Sumption for the bill list.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are no additions to the bill list, so the total is that which is attached at $12,449,772.60.
Motion to approve by Jones. Second, Roberts. All in favor of approving the bill list, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carry. Pat Jones.
Real quick, do we have a date set for legal and finance meeting and public works? Which is which? Public works on 14th, time? Thank you. Legal and finance, 15th,
Correct?
12:30?
Yes, sir.
Will Lance, will you be?
Okay, hold on. All in favor of approving the bill list, say aye again. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Okay, motion to adjourn by Stroman and Roberts. All in favor, say aye. We're adjourned, everyone. Thank you.